Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer, songwriter, flugelhornist, and trumpeter Chris Saunders and pianist Ken Cook of the Chris Saunders Band. I caught up with them over the phone in San Francisco, and we had a very frank talk about COVID, the current live world, their history, their latest 2021 CD, Dancing with the Widow, St. James, and hope for the future. Enjoy.
Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, thank you.
You bet. So let's dive right in here. The latest CD, Dancing with the Widow, St. James. And I want to know, we're on the tail end of a pandemic. And, of course, things are, again, as we've all lived through for the last 18 months, totally, again, ambiguous and uncertain. So what I want to know is, at least for right now, there's sunshine parting through the clouds. And I want to know with the new album what it means to not only have an artistic creation to put out, but another way of possibly communicating with your fans, whether it be through this CD or a live show. How does this feel?
Chris, you want to take that?
You go ahead and take it. It feels great, but it hasn't happened a lot. We had a gig scheduled on Saturday, a situation where there was a possible exposure and we had to dip out of it, one of the members. So it's been, I think for myself, it's been very painful. I've continued with writing and shedding, etc. It's been difficult, and to the whole community here, it's just been devastating in the greater Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Ken, you want to pipe in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, a pandemic like this has the ability to just kind of, it's like taking the cream off at the top of a nice big bucket of yogurt. That's where the culture is. And this just did an impressive job of wiping out culture, and I think for the two of us, we just kind of had to put our heads down and get through this. And we managed to record several tracks during the pandemic, and we were all kind of masked up, and we were in isolation booths, and it felt weird. We weren't able to spend time in the control room like we usually do, and we did it. But I think at the same time, we're living in a period of time when you can do these things, when you can create tracks that really feel cohesive, and you feel the warmth of the musicians together. But this was recorded in a way where there was a little separation among all that. But I feel Chris and I feel really good about this project.
How did you two hook up? How did this music union happen between you two?
Ken would probably explain it better, but basically we've been playing at this one club, which is a pretty famous club in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, kind of a dive bar called the No Name over in Sausalito, which has a long, deep history of really interesting stuff going on. All the beat poets, Jack Kerouac hung out there, and it has an interesting history of great culture kind of hanging out there.
Yeah. I know it very well.
You do? Have you been out here?
I have skipped through there. I love going out that way. Those little sleepy towns along the coast.
Yeah.
I love San Francisco. I love those towns. I was a big, beat generation reading kind of thing in my 20s. I still love it. But I'm totally, what they did for jazz, just even that culture right there, what they did to bring jazz to the forefront was hugely instrumental.
Yeah, no question. No question. Yeah. So I had moved out from Boston, and I'll tell the long short story, or the short long story. I had just moved out after living for many years in Boston, and I was looking for, new people to make music with, and I was on this gig with Chris, and I was like, wow, who is this guy? He just had this great soulful voice, and we just kind of hit it off, and then I was playing this club, the No Name, the drummer Michael Aragon, who's on the album with us. I said, man, we got to bring this guy. We got to do a gig with this guy. Can you book a Saturday or Friday or Saturday night? And let's just do something. And we pulled Rob Fordyce in, who's the bass player on the project as well, still with us, been with us for a long time. And we had this great quartet, like almost instantly. We just pulled some, pulled from a wide array of tunes, some standards and some, at that time I was kind of into, kind of 1950s Atlantic records, Ray Charles stuff, and we just had this great gig, and that turned into a regular gig, and then I'm trying to think, when do you think that happened, Chris? Maybe 2 or 3 years into it, Michael, the drummer, said, "Hey, we got this guy, this great percussionist who's been hanging out. Would you mind if he joined us next Saturday?" And we were like, "Yeah, it sounds great." And that really kind of pushed the whole sound in a different way. I'd been to Cuba. I was really, and still am, really into Afro-Cuban music. And so all these little kind of components kind of started to come together. With Chris being at the forefront and just making this happen. So that's part of the explanation of how we got our sound happening. It came together organically.
Yeah, we all love the whole Latin influence, not just Cuban, but this kind of soul jazz cha-cha thing,
Yeah, and which you're absolutely right, Chris, and that sound for me when I was growing up was, I just got hit over the head with, Les McCann and Eddie Harris and that kind of soul jazz sound, and always wanted to continue to play that and to kind of be a part of making music that sounded like that, And I know Chris feels that way too.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about when you do actually start performing live more. What do you hope we all realize about this absence of live music?
That's a good question. Chris?
Yeah. For me, I've been performing for a long time. I'm also, as whenever I can, I'm a patron of theater, of music locally. There's absolutely no substitute for music for me, and I think for people, I think it brings people together. There's a synergy there that, the sparks don't fly over the internet, but they when you get into a room, you can make and receive the sparks, and it's unpredictable. Well, to answer your question directly, it is a very difficult situation right now. Because we're having, you're thinking about going to a gig. Well, I'm going to have a hard time wearing a mask or a shield or whatever to a gig in a small club that's like a sardine can, playing a horn and singing. So I've got another special kind of a problem. I think that the community has been, as a whole here, has been really deeply affected. I don't know what it's like out in Kansas City right now from a standpoint of the jazz community, but I know that they are hurting in a major way. My goal is to see people heal here and to start working again. And as far as the jazz aspect of it, it's difficult to, this used to be a jazz town. San Francisco used to be a jazz town. I'm hopeful. Let's put it that way. I'm hopeful, and I'm going to try to help by working with other people to make it more effective. That's all I can say about that.
Speaking of the live aspect, if you did come to Kansas City and you did perform live and you did have to, of all the options of people, and there's a lot of options nightly between 10 to 20 different places you can play in Kansas City, how would you convince somebody to come see you guys play, and how would you describe what you would do on stage?
I think the first thing is that with this band, we've kind of taken that in mind, and it's not just not saying it's not just a self-satisfaction thing. It has to do, you want to reach people, so we're not afraid to do that. And I don't want to call it compromise, but but Ken and myself have tried to choose the right tunes, from the right people that speak to people emotionally, and also, we've got our first album was Outside My Window, which we had, that song was an original that we wrote. And then I wrote the lyrics to Driftin', which is that Herbie tune. But on this one, we have 5 original tunes. And they have a certain amount of social commentary in them, from a standpoint, which has to do, like Butterflies and Chicken Wings is basically, wanting the good old days and kind of that girl she stands accused is Greta Thunberg, who's the activist. It's basically, or Ken came up with something because, he lives right pretty close to Mount Tamalpais, and low tide riding on a devil wind. Well, we get the devil winds up here, and we've got the tides rising here. I mean, it's there, and so that's the question, whether they're going to get that or not. But we play a lot of stuff that we play to people. Okay, we don't just stand up there and get inside our heads. We look out and we try to read the people within the confines of what we do. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I don't have a doubt in my mind because of, we have a New Orleans, we have a river influence. There's not a doubt in my mind that we're going to touch somebody with a few of the tunes, not a doubt. Ken?
Well, one of the great things about this band that both Chris and I realize, this is a group that's not afraid to capture the moment, and we don't play the click tracks. We don't. When we're doing a live performance, there are a lot of left and right turns that can occur, which is a lot of fun, and the music that is represented. There's a long history in where I live in Marin County, and where Chris is over on the East Bay, and part of it's all part of the San Francisco Bay Area. There's a long history of musicians who changed the kind of prepackaged sound. So
yeah.
we'd like to think at times that we have just an ever so tiny influence, of groups like the Grateful Dead, where I'm looking at our tracks right now online. Butterflies and Chicken Wings is 4 minutes and 32 seconds. You're not going to get the 4 minute and 32 second version of that when we come to Kansas City and play.
That's right.
It's going to be a little longer, and we're going to take you for a little ride. And that which is really, I think both Chris and I, in writing this music, we're trying to reach back to what affected us in our youth. What made us feel good as 14, 15, 16-year-olds discovering music for the first time in a deeper way. And in our advancing years, we're still trying to capture that. And that's what happens in our live performances. So if you were to come see us at the No Name, it's either us coming out to Kansas City or you guys coming out here and seeing us in Sausalito with the No Name, you're going to go for a ride. And it's not the 4 minute and 32 second ride.
Right on. That's a great triumphant way to wrap everything up. Gentlemen, thank you for opening up about the new album, about this world we live in, and your history. I really appreciate it.
Joe, we can't thank you enough, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in San Francisco, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to both Chris and Ken for their time, music, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
All the way from this fight. Neon Jazz.